Okay, it says I'm live. YouTube just changed its settings, so I want to check real quick to make sure everything's working. And again, if you're just tuning in, live streaming, YouTube has just changed the settings. This isn't how I normally do it, so I want to make sure we're running here. Let me do a little check.
As you now have 76,000 points as part of the loyalty program, there's a 5% discount applied.
Okay, it says I'm live. YouTube just changed its... Okay, it does look like it's working. Okay, cool. So, since we are live, and I thought my camera would be up there, but it looks like it's not showing my camera. I don't know what to do about that. I'll have to tweak with it some more. Anyway, what I wanted to do is talk about what's going on in the headlines right now in light of us being just 10 days from August 11th, 2019. This date we've been keeping an eye on since September of 2018. We're just 10 days away after looking at this date for almost a year. And today, August 1st, one of CNN's top headlines is Intel indicates Al-Qaeda leader has potentially serious heart complaint, official says. And so I said, I wonder what heart complaint equals since they're emphasizing it, and I had to laugh. It sums to 223, which is funny because August 11th, the anniversary date of the establishment of Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda established August 11th, 1988. August 11th is the 223rd day of the year. Of course, we know that's a special number to the Masons. Also has a sync with the Synagogue of Satan. Think about the dancing Israelis on September 11th. And, of course, August 11th is also the day leaving 142 days left in the year. Terrorist equals 142. And since Al-Qaeda was blamed for September 11th, don't forget that the 9/11 attacks lasted 102 minutes or 1 hour, 42 minutes. A lot like 142, like terrorist. And Al-Qaeda in Jewish Gematria is also 102, like how long they say the attacks lasted on September 11, 2001. So as soon as you open up the article, you have to laugh because they point out that this man, al-Zawahiri, is 68 years old. And of course, we've talked about 68 at least 1,000 times in regards to September 11, 2001. So first of all, the word terror equals 68. And don't forget that in 1968, 911 was established as the emergency dialing code. In August of 1968, World Trade Center construction began. And also in 1968, George W. Bush graduated from Yale in Skull and Bones. And every year from George W. Bush's birthday, July 6th, to September 11th is a span of 68 days. And of course, again, 68 is the number. So now look at this. Ayman al-Zawahiri, his name sums to 243. That's funny because Central Intelligence Agency equals 243, just like the abbreviation CIA equals 68. And this year, July 4th, 2019, the United States of America turned 243 years old. 243. CIA, think about how George W. Bush's father was once the head of the CIA before becoming vice president and president, and how on September 11th, 1990, 11 years to the big day, he gave the speech about the New World Order, a world freer of terrorism. Terror 68, George W. Bush's favorite word, his son. Now notice that al-Zawahiri, his full name, this longer name, Ayman Muhammad Rabbi al-Zawahiri, that full name sums to 134 in our most pure cipher, the alphabetic order with the rules numerology. Of course, Tisha B'Av sums to 134, as does the 9th of Av, which are the same thing. 9th of Av is the English way of saying Tisha B'Av, which is the day to remember the destruction of the two temples, not to be confused with the two towers. And again, this year Tisha B'Av falls on August 11th, the anniversary of the establishment of Al-Qaeda. Again, this year on August 11th, it'll also be the Muslim Day of Sacrifice, and it'll be the time of the Hajj, the Muslim pilgrimage. To go back in time to 2001, Tisha B'Av fell on July 28th and July 29th, and from the second day of Tisha B'Av, the last day, to September 11, 2001 was 44 days later. Notice 9th of Av, the other way to say Tisha B'Av, equals 44. Tisha B'Av in Jewish Gematria also sums to 911. 911, which happens to be the 156th prime number, and false flag sums to 156 in Jewish Gematria. False flag also sums to 33. When you write out 33 as a word, it sums to 156. Again, 911, the 156th prime. With regards to 33, from 1968, the year the plan went into motion, to 2001, was 33 years later. And for a kicker, from Harvey's birthday, June 19th, to this news story coming today, August 1st, about his heart, 44 days. 44 days. And as we just said, 9th of Av's 44. From the 9th of Av to September 11th was 44 days later in 2001. And keep in mind, the World Trade Centers were opened on April 4th, 4-4, in the year 1973. That was their grand opening on 4-4. Which happens to be the 94th day of the year. And let me just punch in the word terror again, because I just thought of something in real time. Terror with the alphabetic order is 94. With the reverse alphabetic order, it's 68. And you see the 41 as well. 9/11/2001, 9 plus 11 plus 20 plus 01 was a date with 41 numerology. Al-Qaeda also sums to 41, as does Saudi Arabia, as does USA. Think about how they said there were 19 hijackers. Here we are in 2019, and all of a sudden we're getting this Russia headlines having to do with Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden's son. For another kicker, from his birthday, June 19th, to the start of Tisha B'Av, August 10th, is a span of 53 days. To August 11th, the second day of Tisha B'Av, is 53 days later. And notice Tisha B'Av equals 53 as well. So how perfect. From his birthday to Tisha B'Av, the anniversary of Al-Qaeda, 53 days later. To the start of Tisha B'Av is 52 days. And don't forget the word terrorist equals 52. And they said he has a heart problem. Heart is also 52. Don't forget what day Osama bin Laden died. He died May 2nd, 5-2 in 2011. May 2nd, 2011. And don't forget that from the day Obama took office, January 20th, 2009, to May 2nd, 2011 is exactly a span of 119 weeks. 119. Not far off from 11/9, the way the majority of the world writes the date September 11th. And don't forget, Osama bin Laden's father supposedly died in a plane crash on September 3rd, 9/3, the day leaving 119 days left in the year. And with regards to 9/3, don't forget about the 93 World Trade Center bombing, or Flight 93, or that one World Trade Center equals 93. Again, special number to the elite, symbolizing time, Saturn, connecting to Thelema, the occult religion that was made important by Aleister Crowley, who was a practitioner of this code of letters and numbers, which is Gematria, which comes from Kabbalah. But isn't it all just a little bit too perfect? Here we are, just 10 days away. So that was the latest headline. I thought I'd already seen enough in the last 24 hours. And again, in the last 24 hours, in case you missed the video I put out earlier today, ISIS, which supposedly is a more radical branch of Al-Qaeda. The story was that Al-Qaeda was getting too soft, so they had to create ISIS, get more hardcore with it. But here at the end of July, ISIS put out warnings on social media for San Francisco, New York, and London. Of course, San Francisco is one of the cities we've been keeping an eye on. But isn't it strange that when you write out San Francisco, New York, London, it sums to 118, like August 11th, and also 134, like Tisha B'Av and 9th of Av? With regards to that London warning, don't forget that after the Christchurch 2 mosque attacks, there was a response attack in London the next day, and they reported that it happened at 1:18 p.m. local. Every news source reported that, covered that back in March. And don't forget that the 2 mosque attacks in Christchurch were both in the 8011 area code, and the second mosque to get attacked was at the address 223A, like August 11th, the 223rd day of the year. And when they first put out the name of the shooter, they've changed his name since, but when they first put out his name, it summed to 134, like Tisha B'Av and 9th Av. All that is documented on the blog and older videos. But some of the propaganda that ISIS supposedly put out is this right here. Answer the call. Go and answer the call. Don't spare none. Kill them all. It is now time to rise. Slit their throats. Watch them die. And answer the call sums to 141 at the top. 811 is the 141st prime number. Another way to write the date, August 11th. San Francisco is one of the cities that's warned. San Francisco, California is 141. And then if you take all the words that are up there, just using the alphabetic order, all those words sum to 1180. 1180. What are the odds? You know. And recall, it was last year on September 11th, 2018, what was circulating through the media that first clued us in to the date August 11th. They were coding that number 118. And then shortly after that, you had the massive fires in California, the deadliest fires in the history of the state of California, both on November 8th, after all that coding of 118. Remember, there was the fires in Paradise, California, which is 118. And then there was the fires that same day in Los Angeles, California, which is 118. And Los Angeles is also on the 118th meridian. So there's been nonstop 118 encoding since they first ran those stories about the birth of the unblemished red heifer and how it was bringing about revelation and the third temple. And keep in mind, at the same time, the headlines were starting to circulate about Donald Trump's head being on a coin in Israel to raise money for the third temple. We talked about how Donald Trump was at the site of where they want to build the third temple May 22nd, 2017, exactly 811 days before August 11th. Of course, the election for him was on November 8th as well. But then just last night, July 31st, this was in the headlines. U.S. believes Osama bin Laden's son Hamza is dead. And then when you read the story, you go, well, wait, why would they wait to say this until now? So here's the reporting. The U.S. believes late al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden's son Hamza bin Laden is dead, a U.S. official told CNN on Wednesday. The official said the U.S. had a role in his death but did not provide details. The official added that the U.S. government recently received evidence that it believes corroborates his death. The New York Times reported that Hamza bin Laden had been killed in an operation within the last 2 years. Really? Within the last 2 years, but you're just going to report this 11 days before the anniversary of the establishment of al-Qaeda on August 11th? Also the 31-year anniversary, which is the 11th prime. Earlier this year, the U.S. State Department called bin Laden, who is believed to be in his early 30s, an emerging leader in the terror group al-Qaeda, offering a $1 million reward for information leading to his capture. So just think about how nonsensical all that reporting is. Okay, he's died sometime in the last 2 years, but earlier this year they called him a leader and offered a $1 million reward. If you actually read mainstream media articles, for the most part, they never make any sense. You're just reading a bunch of crap that's meant to confuse you. That's all the media is here for, to instill fear and confusion and deception. It has no other purpose, none. And also to sell prescription drugs. How could I forget? So, Hamza bin Laden, they don't put out an actual birthday for him. They say he was born in 89, which is the 11th Fibonacci number. But the date of this news, July 31st, 2019, date was 77 numerology. Again, September 11th equals 77. World Trade Center equals 77. The World Trade Centers were 110 stories tall. Hamza bin Laden 110, Osama bin Laden 110. 110's 11 with a 0 on the end. Again, 11, the master number. 9/11 was a massive 11 ritual. And just to make sure you've heard this before, even though I've said it a million times, on September 11th, there was the story of Flight 77 hitting the 77-foot tall Pentagon on the 77th meridian after taking off at 8:20 and crashing at 9:37, which is exactly 77 minutes later. And again, September 11th is 77, and so is World Trade Center, and so is United States, and so is Secret Society, and so is Power. And it would only be fair to mention, so is Judaism, in light of the fact of the dancing Israelis who went on television and said that they were in the United States to document the attacks because they had foreknowledge. And let us not forget that the Pentagon construction began on September 11th, again 77 feet tall, 1941, like how 9/11, 2001 was a date with 41 numerology, Al-Qaeda 41, Saudi Arabia 51, USA 41, Terror 41. And let us not forget that last year, 2018, was the 77-year anniversary when the headlines were circulating, foreshadowing the number 118 and talking about the coming temple, which is connected to Tisha B'Av, which falls on August 11th. Again, this is how it all began, because it was all communicated through the encoded news headlines. And ever since then, they've continued to code the same numbers a million times over. So, also circulating in the news at the end of July, a story that might seem totally unrelated, but at the same time is quite interesting. One of the shooters of Westside Middle School, which happened in 1998, just before Columbine, reportedly died in a car crash this past weekend. And they shot up Westside Middle School, which equals 223. Him and his accomplice. The younger one just died. And notice Westside Middle School is 223, like August 11th. His partner, who's still alive, Andrew Golden, just died. Mitchell Johnson's still alive. Mitchell Johnson's birthday is August 11th. So, this story's coming back. And you just got to say, what are the odds? What are the odds that this is in the headlines? And, it brings back memories of this shooting where one of the shooters was born on August 11th. And like I said earlier, Columbine shooting, which happened a year later on April 20th, the 110th day of the year, April 20th, 1999. Here, I'll just show you this. Dylan Klebold, if I can spell his name right. Dylan Klebold, look at his birthday, September 11th, 1981. It was reported after Columbine that Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris had journals, and they fantasized about hijacking planes and flying them into the World Trade Centers. Again, the shooting was on April 20th, the 110th day of the year. The World Trade Centers were 110 stories tall. And again, it's all predictive programming. It's a web of stories tied together that are all the work of our government. And understand what government is. It's mind control. And every day it needs to give you a reason to have fear and think you need Big Brother to keep you safe. And every day when you know this code, you can see how these stories are all interconnected. And that's another Kabbalistic belief, the red thread that ties all things together. Of course, this young man who just died, which I put a video out on earlier, he died at that infamous age of 33. And I'm not going to go through everything I put out in the video earlier. I just want to cover the main point that this is circulating right now in the news. Brings up the shooting at the school that has the 223 name, and then the shooter with the August 11th birthday, August 11th, the 223rd day of the year. And the other night when I did my live stream reviewing a lot of the August 11th material and predictive programming and the events that have already been synced up with that day, including the mosque shootings in New Zealand, including the burning of Notre Dame and Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, I forgot to cover this. Earlier this year, 911 season finale recap. The serial bomber targets the 118. And just reading that headline, what it reminds me of is how last October we had the story of the mega bomber and how Dan Barron and myself showed how those stories were foreshadowing Tisha B'Av. And then on Tisha B'Av, which was March 15th, we ended up getting the Christchurch mosque shootings in the 8011 area code, the second mosque at 223A address, where August 11th is the 223rd day of the year. And then the next day you got the response attack in London at 1:18 p.m. local. But you just gotta say, I mean, what are the odds of this? What are the odds of these numbers just showing up the way they did? And again, last year on the 9/11 anniversary, that's when all the encoded, stories of 118 started to show up. So that was the 28th episode, Israel, Zion, both 28. This Life We Choose equals 82, like Tisha B'Av, the name of the episode. And it came out the day before Israel turned 71 years old. Israel's birthday is May 14th. Remember, that's the day of the Zion Williamson sweepstakes. A sick joke it is. Look at who runs the NBA. So, again, to go back to the beginning, September 11, 2018, this is what was circulating in the news, the birth of the red heifer, the coming cataclysm, the third temple, the biblical prophecy. And again, they first reported that this cow was born on September 4th. Go down and scroll all the way down to it. There's a lot of information here. But they first reported that the cow was born September 4th, and then I am aware that they later changed the date, which I don't care too much about, because there's a reason they reported it on this day at September 4th. Prophecy fulfilled after red cow was born at Temple of Israel. An all-red heifer was born at the Temple of Israel on September 4th. And September 4th is the day leaving 118 days left in the year. If you recall, that was also the day that George Herbert Walker Bush was honored for his 1,000 points of light. And not by accident, because again, it leaves 118 days left in the year. George Herbert Walker Bush, his name, equals 118 in the most pure cipher. And he was number 41. If you write out 41, it equals 118. If you write out skull and bones, it equals 41. You see how skull and bones is also 149? From the two mosque shootings on August 11th, on March 15th to August 11th is 149 days later. You see? 9/11/2001 on the date with 41 numerology, major skull and bones operation. So, anyhow, and here I'll just show you that September 4th leaves 118 days left in the year. Right here. Don't forget what day George H.W. Bush died, November 30th. 11 plus 30, 41, the same day Paul Walker died in history, who died in a red Porsche after starring in the film about Skull and Bones where he drove a red Porsche. But, see how they did it with the red cow, born on 9/4, red cow 94? And again, terror is 94. Also, I just want to go back to 11/11/2018 last year. 11/11 on the Gregorian calendar is kind of like September 11th, 9/11 on the Julian calendar. And of course, September 11th had everything to do with 11. Last year on November 11th, there were so many stories that were connected to September 11th. One of which was the death of Douglas Rain. Notice Douglas Rain equals 68, like terror, like CIA. Douglas Rain was the voice of the robot from 2001: A Space Odyssey, a film that came out in 1968, the same year World Trade Center construction began, 911 was made the national emergency dialing code, Bush graduated from Skull and Bones, etc., etc. He died on November 11th. And recall everything that happened on November 11, 2018. I don't even have it all written up here, but George W. Bush was given the Liberty Medal on that day. Notice that was 19 days before his father died on November 30th. A Florida vote recount was decided on. Remember how George W. Bush became the president because of the recount that was canceled in Florida where his brother was the governor. And in case you don't know this, Yale equals 43. His father was the 43rd vice president. He was the 43rd president, and his brother Jeb was the 43rd governor of Florida. Florida's also 43. But on the same day, George W. Bush gets the Liberty Medal. There's a Florida vote recount decided on. The Jets and Patriots both lost in the NFL on that day, which is funny because the Jets won their only championship at the end of the 1968 football season. Think about it, New York Jets. Think about how Tom Brady's career began after Drew Bledsoe, number 11, was sacked by Mo Lewis, the New York Jet, and injured. Patriots, Patriot Act, New York Jets, sick jokes, the web of deceit. A massive fire also broke out in Seattle, and that mattered because the firm that built the World Trade Centers, Magnuson Klemenkic Associates, they're from Seattle. Joe Perry collapsed on stage at Madison Square Garden at the age of 68. From Aerosmith, Joe Perry. Anthony Bourdain, who died on June 8th, 6'8", had his last episode broadcast on CNN 156 days after his death, and that episode was set in New York. Again, let's just go over this. Whoops. I need to pull up the Jewish Gematria calculator here. I'm going to type in false flag. See how false flag's 33? Like how from 1968 to 2001 is 33 years? If you write in 33, it's 156. 911 is the 156th prime number. And in Jewish Gematria, false flag is 156. And remember, Tisha B'Av, to remember the destruction of the two temples, is 9/11, the 156th prime. So Anthony Bourdain, 156 days after his death, on 11/11, which would be like 9/11 on the Julian calendar, they air this last episode set in New York. And by the way, New York's 33 too. And then the man who played the voice of Hal, he died on that day. And there were some other things that I'd need to add to that list, but I'd have to go back and figure out what those were. But there was just all these things on November 11th that were all part of a big, sick joke. And by the way, Space Odyssey equals 156 as well. Again, Hal from Space Odyssey, Douglas Rain. For just one more 68 ritual. Oh, it looks like I had all that information already in this post. And by the way, the construction firm that built the World Trade Centers, Magnuson Klemenkic Associates out of Seattle, 156. So anyway, that's about all I wanted to cover. And sorry for the people who tuned in for the live stream. It was supposed to start at about 4 o'clock, but I found out YouTube changed the way live streaming works now, and it took a bit of troubleshooting to get this going. So we'll leave it there for now. And actually, you know what? I got a little bit longer to hang out. I could probably hang on for 20 more minutes. See if this thing's still going. If anybody wants to call in, if anybody else has anything else to chime in with or a question to ask, and try to keep it on topic if you're calling in. But the number is 509-731-0567. If you want to call in, it's 509-731-0567. And let's see here. I got the chat open on another screen here. Somebody writes, collapse, both collapsed. Collapsed equals 33, they write. Yeah, that's an interesting observation. They collapsed as 33. Let's see here. Caller?
Hey.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, man, I just noticed that there's a film called 118.
Oh, really?
Indian film.
Film 118, I didn't know about it.
On another screen here, somebody writes collapse. Hello?
Yeah, you hear me? You hear me, Dan? You got to talk to me through the phone. You're on delay.
There was a film called 118, and it was released on March 1st, which is 163 days before August 11th.
Yeah, I hear you. You got to mute your video in the background.
I just noticed that there's a film called 118. Oh, man, I'm getting this weird feedback. Oh, really?
Yeah, that's because you're... Did you turn off your video?
So it has